Mic check, mic check.
All right. Hi. All right, so
There we go.
again. So I'm Phaedra Black. I do make content across multiple platforms, many different types. And you can find all that on my website under that name. We are going to be introducing everybody else down the table, and they can kind of tell you what they do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Loflinen. Can you hear me? Yes? Up? Is that better? Yes. Okay. I am Loflinen, otherwise known as Andrea Tammy. I am also a creator in the digital space, obviously. So I do a lot of YouTube, and I do a lot of Photoshop work, and I even do like teaching online. So a lot of different hats.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelly Schmalz, and I would say I am a connector and an amplifier in the digital space. I'm the director of community for Stage 32, which Forbes calls the LinkedIn for the entertainment industry. We have over 1 million members and about 2,000 hours of educational information, as well as a way to democratize the film industry where you can actually pitch straight to studios and producers. I'm also the vice president of programming for Women in Film and Television Atlanta. So those are my opportunities where I am able to amplify people's voices over digital spaces, but I'm also a content creator as well. I do a burlesque and run a IG Live called Older and Bolder, where I interview burlesque performers and pinup models who are over 40.
That's cooler than mine. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Osborne. I go by Katiosaurus on all the social medias where I'm a full-time content creator, streamer, YouTuber, podcaster. Primarily, I talk about ADHD, neurodivergency, and disability. And I split my time between talking about the relationship to the relationship that sex and intimacy has on neurodivergency and disability. And then I also talk about making TTRPGs more inclusive for neurodivergent brains. Thank you.
I'm Jenna Garrett. I'm a podcaster. I do D&D podcast called Botched and some other things. And also Horse Girls, where I try and get everybody to realize that they are a horse girl.
You know, I love that you said that. I was on a panel where we did a game, and one of our guests, we asked her, I was like, oh, are you a horse girl? She's like, I see why you would think that. And I was like, I'm back to Jenna. But hi, everybody. I'm Chelsea Bites. I am a host for Amazon and for AMC. I stream on my own channel, Variety Video Games. I build computers. I stream on the go. I literally stream just about everywhere at this point. I built my own IRL backpack. I built my own to-go stream setup. Very much a tech creator. I am a computer scientist. I have my degree. Yes, I have made so many Hello World programs. I cannot count them anymore. But yeah, it's nice to meet y'all, and I'm excited to talk about everything today. Yeah, it's gonna be nice. Thank you.
All right, so with this panel, we kind of want to go over the different things that we as female presenting have to deal with in the industry, because we do deal with a lot of things. We do have to handle things differently than some of the male counterparts within the same situations. So I kind of want to go through and maybe go down, start this way with any like advice or maybe a negative or positive experience you've had that kind of reflects the difference in how we have to deal with things.
I guess I'm first. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all have to say, because I think this is something that affects women in anytime you're in the public eye, anytime that you're on the internet. It's just, it can be a bit problematic, and we do have to handle ourselves in different ways than men may have to. Probably if I'm going to harken back to the worst situation that happened to me is I actually had a stalker online who ended up painting naked pictures of me and him and trying to sell them in a public space. I did not end up getting a restraining order, but like that's the sort of thing that you have to think about. And I found that dealing with things in the future, it's more like you almost have to put like, it's terrible to do this. You have to remember that there's like a wall on the internet, and it's hard to say, like, you know, you can't make friends with men online, but you do just have to, like, you know, they have a bit more questions to answer before you can get there.
You have to be careful what you put out there and what questions you do answer when they ask you.
Exactly. Things. When I'm on YouTube or when I'm streaming on Discord, or like on Twitch or anything, I do not mention where I live. That's one of the things people ask me, like, so where's your shop? Like, where are you mailing from? And I'm like, oh, that's, it doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. So things like getting a PO box. If you do shipping, get a PO box because you don't want anyone having your personal address.
I'm going to give an example of just something, one of the most harmful things that Facebook ever did. And this was probably about 10 years ago. They stripped the ability to have stage names as part of your profile. So, especially if you do drag, pinup, burlesque, cosplay, and you work for a school system or a corporate entity that isn't as creative, that embraces those, that creative side of you. Facebook made it that you had to, they disbanded all those profiles, and it took many years and a lot of just a lot of people and armies really to get those names back, to let people reclaim their profiles. So I think, just from a business standpoint, that was just one of the most damaging things that I've seen. But now knowing that there are platforms out there where you can present your your personal and your stage name or alter ego in Facebook has been great. For personal, I think because of doing burlesque and pinup as well, it's really being able to navigate situations where people feel more familiar to you than they really are. People who think they're, they think they know you because they know your stage persona, and it's really not that. And so it's being able to properly navigate fans and fans who are trying to be more than friends than you're comfortable with. So being able to kind of create that bubble space.
Yeah. So I talk about sex on the internet for my job. So my experiences, I think, are very interesting because, obviously there's the safety component, there's the boundary component, things like that you want to address. But also, one of the things that I was very surprised about was just the amount of stigma and the amount of sort of like judgment from streaming platforms about this idea that talking about sex or intimacy or like kink safety was it's like something bad and like, oh, we have to take it off the platform. And so because as an educator, I think it's really important to have those conversations consensually and safely. It's been kind of a struggle for me because not only am I very frequently like, well, you talk about sex on the internet, so therefore you want all of these like deeply personal and offensive questions thrown at you all the time. But even more than that is just fighting for visibility on platforms like TikTok. Like TikTok is my biggest platform, but I have to speak in code, and I had to move actually a lot of my more educational content over to OnlyFans because it was like one of the only places where like you can say whatever you want. And so that's been really difficult for me because, I was like, I think if I was talking about, like sewing or cosplay or something, which I love, and that's the thing that I really like. But it frustrates me that like, well, this kind of education is totally okay, but this kind of education isn't okay. And it's like, no, it's all education. And so, yeah, like fighting with platforms and that kind of thing. That's my answer.
For me, it's been really important to learn that just because you play with boys on the internet, like you are the only female femme person in a group of guys on the internet, that doesn't mean that you have to be one of the boys. And it doesn't mean that they shouldn't advocate for you when something is not wrong, or when something is wrong, rather.
Yeah.
I love that. That was a great answer. I really like that because I think people imagine femme in this very linear, like I'm through a binocular state, and people are really quick to boil women down just to their parts. Like, oh, you have a uterus. Oh, you have boobs. That makes you a woman. You can carry life inside of you. So a lot of my femme experience is explaining to people that is not what makes us women. And that's why the idea of being a woman is so encompassing. It's not just, oh, you have a period. Wow. There are plenty of women who don't have periods. There are plenty of women who can't have babies or don't have babies. There are plenty of women who don't have boobs. So really just sit back and think about how narrow-minded you are and just learn, expand. So that's my biggest fem journey with my community. And I'm very glad that I've been able to expose them to that. Just like the simple, oh, well, yeah, obviously a woman does this. I'm like, really? How many women have you talked to? I'm pretty sure you know somebody in your family that refutes exactly what you just said. So please just embrace that.
All right. So for me, like, because I do stuff on OnlyFans as well, and people come up to you and they do recognize you in public. So as far as that, how do you handle if you are in a platform where you do get recognized in public? How do you handle that if you're with your family or your friends or here at DragonCon where you just kind of want to enjoy yourself? How do you make sure people don't cross that boundary of being too familiar? Or do you have, any advice for other people on how to help people deal with those situations?
I'm in the special circumstance where online I actually began as anonymous. So people didn't know what I looked like or what gender I was or how I identify until many years later after I became more popular. So when I do meet people, they don't know what I look like. And it's great. It's a surprise. People do not recognize me. So I'm actually protected in that way. But when people do recognize me, they're just wonderful. And everyone here at DragonCon is exceptionally wonderful. So I'm actually, I haven't encountered a problem in that area, but
so I've been in Atlanta now for about half my life, about 23 years, and I've lived about 7 or 8 different lives here. I've done everything from working at a corporate, corporate rewards, travel for doctors to nonprofit work here. And so I get recognized in all different types of situations. And I mean, I love it. One of the things that for me, I enjoy doing is connecting people. So being able to kind of connect people to different things. But I think it is being able to know like who's, who your friends are, and just not divulging too much information. Like I'm not going to talk about my dating life or my family to people that just are not of my circle. And you can kind of create conversations to be able to know and learn about people without giving all of yourself to them. And I think a lot of it is the energy you give out and the energy that you give back in.
I just keep being like, well, I make content about mental health. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got, like when I started sort of gaining popularity, I got lucky enough to talk to a friend who had been like legit famous for a really long time. And she said, the thing that you have to remember is that, you might be at the restaurant, you might be out with your family, you might be doing whatever, but for that person who comes up to you, this is their shot. This is their moment. This is like their shot at thanking you, at telling you, like what your work means to them. And this is probably for them the only time in their entire life that they're going to have this opportunity to like run into you and say, hey, thank you so much for your work. But for you, it might be the 4th or the 5th or the 17th time that day. And so part of being a content creator, part of being a public person is knowing how to sort of like in that moment, create that space for them and hold that space for them and give them that opportunity to say their piece, and it was weird because, I went from being a fairly anonymous person to 3 million people knowing who I am. And so I get recognized a lot. I get stopped a lot. And, there's a lot of like, I get to take the service elevator now, like that kind of thing, which is nice. That helps a little bit. But the thing that I always just keep in mind is that, especially because of the kind of content that I make, because I talk so much about mental health and like helping yourself and that kind of thing, people want to share their stories and people want to tell me like how that kind of content has helped them on their journey of personal discovery or with their relationships or whatever. And that's like you just said, like it's a gift. It's such a profound opportunity to not only get to meet fans and get to meet people, some whom become friends, Leah, but other times it's just a way of knowing that, my work is making a difference and my work matters to people. And so, yeah, like I just try really hard to always give that space. And if I can't, sometimes I have to be like, I'm so sorry, but I really gotta pee, but I'll be right back.
I think outside of specific like botched related events, it hasn't happened yet. But I'm really looking forward to see how I do handle it.
I love that too. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't had such a big issue with it. Um, for me, it's more on the other end of keeping family separate from that. That is the other side of it. And I won't say separate, but just not exposed. So, yeah, I have my parents, I have siblings who may watch from time and time again, which has definitely changed my content a lot. But also just teaching them like, hey, this is my space. I need you to respect it. This is me sharing a piece of me with you. And whether this hurts your feelings or you didn't know it or, you don't agree with it, you just need to understand that most people don't have access even to their own kids in this way, shape, and form. So just accept that I am being unfettered, open, and honest. And you're lucky to have that. So I don't really take any commentary from my family on what I do because they understand this is my job. They'll laugh about it, they'll take their favorite parts. We might have discussions, but that's it. Secondhand, don't use my name. I definitely PR train my family. I'm like, hey, you hop in chat, don't say your name. Don't say any family members' names. Don't talk about our home. Just talk about what we're talking about right now. And that has made everything really, really simple. I've had some issues where I've had some family members come in and just be like, oh man, your partner XX this name, blah blah. I'm like, please, and you gotta ban some family members. I'm like, you're done. I'm sorry, you're done. I've even had siblings where I'm like, okay, you're not supposed to be watching this, and I'll ban them too. But keeping that separation of family from your community has been very important. Like, they don't even know my husband's name. So, yeah, it gets really easy to find us once you know both of our names. We're really unique people, apparently. But yeah, that's my side of it, just keeping that separate from the public.
Okay. Like for me, because my daughter actually is involved in a lot of the things that we do. She's right there. Hello.
Aw.
So she goes to conventions and stuff like that, but we've taught her about full names and we have our content names, which is what she addresses us in public if we're out, or mom, because, that's how that works. But it's keeping those things separate. And like for us, aside from DragonCon, I tend to not post anything on social media till I get home. So if we're out to dinner, we're out at the zoo, we're out doing things, and we're taking pictures, I may take all the pictures, but I'm going to post it when I get home.
Exactly.
If I wasn't doing panels here, I wouldn't be posting while I was here. But unfortunately, the advertising part of it, you kind of
don't let them know your next move.
But it's a little bit bigger area than the zoo or dinner somewhere. So it's definitely trying to make sure we keep all of that separate. And keeping family separate is like, because she has her own Instagram where we post all of our family stuff. So then when family follows her on Instagram, they get blocked on mine. And I'm like, I know who you are and I know how to find you. And then that way they don't have to be involved in all of my content side because some of that ain't their business at all.
There you go.
At all. All right. So since this is kind of a new panel for us and we're kind of feeling how we want to go with this as panelists, do we want to try to share more experiences or do we want to try to take questions from people sooner than we normally would in a panel and kind of see where people are going with that?
Oh, I think questions would be great.
Questions are awesome.
Group, but
All right.
I love
so
a
if
good
you
question.
do have questions, we have the microphone, so you have to line up over there. That way everyone can hear you. So go. Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free and we'll go with that. No one ever wants to be first.
Hi, I was just wondering if you notice your content starting to attract a section of audience or demographic that you don't want following your content, how do you dissuade certain categories of people who might be interested in your content to not consume it without seeming overly aggressive, gatekeepy, etc.?
That's a great question.
Right.
Yeah.
I can start. I'm working on that. Sometimes you just don't want men around you. Like, I'm making this content for the girlies and that's it. Ultimately, it's really hard to poll your audience. Yes, it's very easy to gather data, but what you really need to do, collab with other people in that community. Ask them, hey, is this something that would reach out to you? And then address them directly in your content. Hey, girls, or hey, X, hey, Y. And then hopefully that you'll see that uptick. Because unfortunately, you're just, sometimes it just happens. It is what it is. They're going to be there if they want to be there. All you can really do is just try to make your inner circle more of what you look like, and then they can disperse it to their stuff, and then you'll bring more of that community in. Network. Yeah, that's what I do. Do you have a better answer? Or equivalent, or just something more to
No,
add?
I was just gonna say, like, I don't have a problem at 3 a.m. when I am insomniac, not sleeping. I call it delete scrolling, where I just block people who do not align with my values.
So I'll answer too, I guess. We'll just go to
Yeah.
That's fine. So very recently, I got doxxed, which had never happened to me before. And when they doxxed me, they also doxxed my mom, which was weird. And so they took content from my OnlyFans and they sent it to my mom. And they were like, FYI, your daughter's a whore. That was fun. That was a fun thing. And it was great because my mom was like, "K," and just like didn't care. Like my mom is rad, right? Like my mom was like, "Cool, awesome." Like I was like, "Thanks, mom." Right? I was like, "Shout out to my mom." It's also her birthday today. I know, right?
Happy
I'll let her know
birthday.
you said so. But so I was like telling my therapist about this, and my therapist was like, "Well, first off, worst case scenario happened, and it was fine, so like that's awesome." But she was like, "Well, do you know why?" And so like I started looking into it, and it turns out that there are a lot of people on the internet who are mad that I talk about mental health, and they're mad that I talk about sex and intimacy. And one of the things that I really had to wrestle with was the fact that people sometimes are just not going to like what you do. And when you find those people, like you can block, you can whatever, but ultimately like I had this like crisis, and I was like, oh no, like what am I going to do? People are mad at me for like talking about the stuff that's important to me. And I got that far before I thought, but it is important to me. It's important to me. This work matters to me, and I'm passionate about it. And so I just started saying, you know what, like if you want to come into my space and attack me for trying to educate and make the world a better place, that's a you problem, fam, not me. And that allowed me to like protect my peace a little bit better. But what I really had to do was shift how I was looking at my content. Like I'm making my content for me to like, fulfill my spirit and like light my spark. And everybody else can watch it if they want and get mad at me if they want, but it's okay. That was kind of an answer.
Also, definitely know your safety tools and just to help protect yourself. You can't always do it. It happens. Not like it's not ever going to be your fault, but just whatever you can, understand the tools, protect everything. And yeah, I really like that. Don't post where you live. A lot of people do it. Don't post outside of your home or outside of your. No, you're great. Please,
jump
please.
right on top.
Jump
of you.
in.
No, there are also, this is just like for the room as a whole, there are also several online services where you can pay like $20 to like $80, and they will scrub the internet of your information. Because like I found out like my home address was just like readily available online, and like my phone number and like all of that stuff. And so once all of that kind of like safety stuff started happening, I started looking into it. So that's the thing that I really recommend for like any creator who's starting out. Do that first, so you don't have to have the panic moment of your mom going, "So I got some pictures today." You can sit down. It's okay. You don't have to awkward Sander. It's okay. I appreciate the commitment.
I thought she had more. I'm sorry.
You're in heels. I'm sorry.
For me, I have just been, especially this past year, I really wanted to kind of make a change in my life and really kind of put out content on my own channel that was to amplify and create. So I shifted the type of things I was posting. Before I don't think I really had a narrative behind what I was doing. It was just more like, hey, I'm here and I'm here. But as soon as I started to post more about the professional organizations I was with, or more than the events I was just producing, I did see a shift in people who were catching on to it. I really haven't had much negative impact on my channel because of that. So I'm not sure if I really have that kind of example of an answer, but I do, I did see though a good shift in the type of people I was attracting by the type of content I was putting out there.
So I'm going to add on to what these guys have said here. Like right at the beginning, you said, say, like, hey girls or ladies, or like, address your audience. You have to remember that you're on an online platform, and the energy that you put out is the energy that you attract. So if you are, say, like, if you're doing awesome pinups and stuff, like, a lot of the time that could be from a woman's perspective, or it could be aimed at doing like, the male gaze. So like, do whatever you want to do, but just keep in mind that what you put out is what you attract. And for the most part, like, don't get addicted to wanting to attract more likes for the sake of like, I'm going to post this because I know it's going to get more likes, because that could be the wrong people that you're looking for. Don't mind if you get, say, 1,000 likes on one thing, like the type of content you want to post, but like the other type of content gets like 5,000 likes. Like if that's not the energy you want, then just don't feel pressured to go down that path. And there will be people nonetheless who are not the people you want to attract. And in that case, I don't know about other areas, but Instagram for sure is being very good at letting you like, mute people or like restrict people. Use those features.
Deleting comments are great. I love
yeah.
deleting comments. Yeah.
I've definitely started deleting a lot more on TikTok because dealing with like I do a lot of lifestyle content and stuff like that. And I actually, my whole account got permabanned on Tuesday.
Oh
And I
God.
was going to DragonCon. I'm like, I'm losing my account. Well, I appealed it and I got it back in 2 hours.
Oh,
which
lit.
I was so excited. But going through, someone had gone through my entire lifestyle playlist and reported every single video for adult activity. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, so you really need to make sure I'm going through now and going through my comments, because sometimes you just don't get all the comments because you get a lot sometimes, is going through and trying to get rid of the negative ones or the ones that are preaching something that is not to what I want. If they're like going, oh, you should go to church, or oh, you should do this, or oh, you should do that, that on some of those posts, that's not relevant to that content. So we need to remove those, and hopefully that'll help get them maybe out of the algorithm of whoever is seeing them that doesn't need to.
I don't know what it is with TikTok, but there's so many more trolls there than like the awesome communities on Instagram or YouTube or
They can be
Tumblr.
completely anonymous. And then they can just make another account, and another account, and another account.
It's fresh. It's a new platform. Yeah, they're working on it. I guess. TikTok's TikTok.
Yeah.
Hi. So I stream on Twitch, and it's possibly like the most visible I've been in digital media because for the most part I've done cosplay and taking pictures of like my work and posting it and not being like at the forefront. And like I started making a joke in my Twitch community about like, don't perceive me. Because there's some days I don't want to be perceived because I'm non-binary, but like on Twitch, because I'm very femme presenting, I get misgendered a lot. And sometimes it just really gets to me and I'm just like, hey guys, don't perceive me. If you do at your own risk. It's not that kind of day. But I want to ask, well, like, I'm not sure if anyone here is like part of like, the mafia, alphabet mafia, but how do you deal with your community, like, I guess, addressing you and seeing you and then just kind of like going with what they see versus like asking you, hey, what are your pronouns? Or, hey, I don't know, what can I address you as or whatever. Like, how do you train them to like see you and then like just not automatically think, oh yeah, that's a woman. All right, she has tits. And then go from there.
Precisely. Please.
I'm going to go first here. So back when I was anonymous, thank you for such an awesome question, by the way. When I was anonymous, I got picked up by a whole bunch of news media outlets on the internet, and they just assumed my gender as male. And that really pissed me off because like I went by they, them because I was anonymous. And I mean, the assumption is offensive. No offense, guys. But I find that the biggest thing is just to make sure you have to take responsibility for that identification. And you have to make sure that you don't get offended if someone else assumes, because you just got to tell them. So it's my fault for blankly stating that I was like not a man, but at the same time, it's their fault for making the assumption. So basically, I'm going a bit of roundabout here, but what I'm trying to say is don't be afraid to just put your foot down. Like, put it in your titles, be like they, them, have like stickers or emotes or something. Make sure you just make it visible, because I think that people are still learning. And if they're making the assumption that they, them is male or female, then I mean, they're just being, insensitive. So
That part.
try to make it easy for other people, I guess.
So many platforms have the option to put your
Yes.
pronouns
Yes.
in your bio. I like Instagram does, TikTok does. I think Twitch does in some areas. So you have the opportunity to put that out there, so you can try to educate people before they even address you.
Yeah, like put it in a
So-
little, like if it's Twitch, put it in one of those little drop down things that you have there. Yeah, say it proudly.
I would say don't be afraid, and this is just to the audience, don't be afraid to ask people their pronouns. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it depends truly on the space. If we're doing a presentation like this where it definitely matters, like, oh, hey, this person is addressed as this, it's okay to ask. I think it's people getting comfortable with it. I know with my parents, I'm like, hey, it really isn't that difficult. I mean, people will address you, and if you get it wrong, it's okay to be wrong. Just correct yourself. Because people have this, I think the most annoying argument is, oh, it's so confusing. How am I going to keep up with that? And I'm like, I mean, if somebody looks at you and they say, hey, just call me this, don't call me this, I hope you would be cognizant enough to just change. It's simple. Like, you have conversations with this person, you will be talking to them. Just change. What I've been doing in my Twitch streams, I do not address people as he or she. When they come in, they're they. That's it. And then if they want to change it, they'll let me know. My mod, very much a he. I called them they. They were like, oh no, I'm a he. I was like, perfect. Great. He. Yeah, want to add on?
Yeah, like you mentioned in the stream, one of my friends has an extension.
Yes.
As mentioned, pronoun. So like in mine, because my memory is horrible. If you have Chrome up, you'll see the pronouns next to each person, and usually when they come in, the prompt comes up whenever we get to the chat, and I have that set up. And I have some stuff there, but I like them presenting, but it just seems like lately as my platform, we just hit like 1K, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like there's like a shifting demographic almost.
Yes.
I am reaching a bigger audience, and more of them are just like, oh yeah, we like her because she's pretty, because she's crocheting, because her nails are done, because
That part.
of all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know like what I need to do like this class to like they them
On you. Hey,
Yeah, I mean,
Look,
honestly,
You can even have it
Honestly,
as like, something that's up there on your screen all the time as a graphic.
Like an overlay.
you will have to repeat things 1,000 times, not just about your pronouns, about where you're going to be, about what you're doing to your audience everywhere. It's unfortunate, but this isn't going to be the only place where you're going to have to blast the same information on 6 other platforms. So the thing that I would say would make me most comfortable when it comes to where I spend the time most, Twitch. I built a community. I built this mythos of who I am, what I'm doing, X, Y, and Z. When you repeatedly address that to your community, they'll start correcting the people who come in. And it's like they said, people are learning. Unfortunately, it's the minority like practice, but try to make your space as soon as possible. Timers just to remind people, hey, I'm not a she, I'm they, or whatever I prefer. And I would love it if you address that. And then after a while, once you warn people once and they still don't respect it, you give them warnings, you can ban them. Because some people will just forget, oh, I forgot. I'm like, well, fine, I can forget you in the ban list. So, yeah, just do
Yeah.
that.
always, always advocate for yourself, and always have people around you who are willing to advocate for you, but also never let somebody's perception of you alter how you perceive yourself. It doesn't matter. Their experience is different. If they want to keep being a jerk, let them be a jerk, ban them, whatever. You are still you. It doesn't matter.
Hi.
No, you're great.
So kind of on that note, and to harken back to what you were saying earlier, Katie, like when you are approached either in person or online, how do you protect your space if you are feeling burnt out? Like we have a lot of people, because we talk about mental health a lot too. So we have a lot of people that reach out to us, and it's well-meaning, and I love it when they do. We love hearing it. But there are some days where I don't have the bandwidth for it, and I do not have the space for myself, much less someone who is more or less a stranger. So how do you protect yourself in those moments while still having that compassion and empathy for them?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I have a lot of different strategies that I use, because again, like my platform, like what I do, like it really snowballed. Like I started off so anonymous, and now it's just like, oh my gosh, there's so many people. And so like I used to respond to, I used to read every single comment and respond to every single message that I got. And then I remember one day very specifically, I'd cleaned out my inbox at the end of the day. And then I woke up the next morning and I had precisely 999 new emails. And I went, not today, Satan. And so that was kind of the moment where I realized I really struggled with burnout like the first year as a content creator, because I was working like 85-hour weeks. Like I was waking up at 4:00 in the morning to just obsessively respond, because I was like, I have to respond to every message or they're not going to feel loved and taken care of. And then finally I realized that like, you can't pour from an empty cup, and if I can't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to keep continuing to do this work. I'm not going to be able to like build this community and do this work that I want to do. So I started instituting a lot of different things. So one, I have like Google email templates that was life-changing the day I found out about Google email templates. Because, if somebody's in crisis or is just looking for resources, I have like 25 of like the top like 50 questions, that I get. And it's like, hey, I think I might have ADHD. I'm like, boom, here's that template, and I'm very transparent. And I don't pretend like it's not a template, but I just say, hey, like I try really hard to respond to every email that I get, but here's like just some useful information. At some point I always feel so pretentious saying this part, but like I did hire a manager. And so he takes care of like brand deals and like that kind of thing for me. I also have like mods who do a lot for me, like on Twitch and that kind of thing. And then also like I'm just very sort of like transparent about it. Like I tell people like I try to read everything. There are certain platforms where you are guaranteed a response. Like if you reach out to me on OF, like, throw a little tip in the tip jar, I will answer your question.
That part.
But I think one thing, I'm sorry, I'm like rambling, but I'm very
No.
passionate about this. But one of the other things too is I think that as a creator, because we tend to start by working for free, and also I have a background in theater where it's like, for the exposure, just do it for the exposure. It's so easy to just be like, oh, I should I should do this for free. And it's really easy to undervalue your time and undervalue your worth as a creator. And so once I started really sort of like doing that double thing of like taking care of myself in terms of protecting my time, but then also really investing in my worth, it made it a lot easier. Now I will say very transparently, I don't know why I checked right before the panel, but I literally have 35,000 messages that I haven't read. That's fine. I'll get through them. I forgot to check them yesterday and they just like pile, so some people might be waiting for a response for a couple of days, but yeah, I mean, just things like that, just as much that you can do to automate, as much as you can do to just sort of like, but just remembering like, you don't owe anybody a response. And I think just, acknowledging if you can, but if not, like just, like you were saying earlier, put it everywhere, put it on all of your platforms. Yes. I have it on my Insta, I have it on my Twitter, I have it on my TikTok. It's like, here is what you can email me about. Here are my boundaries. Here is what I will take questions about. Here's what I won't take questions about. And that really helps to streamline the process. So I hope any of that is helpful.
I do kind of the same thing too,
Right.
with like messages. Unfortunately, I do respond more to the OnlyFans one when money is attached to it. And that sounds pretentious in a way.
It's not. You're valuing your
time.
time.
You have to find a boundary to figure out where you're going to put your priorities at.
Throw that mental out. That's not unfortunate.
Right.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
just kind of like you're like, oh, well, I'm only going to talk to you if you pay me, but you have to get past that mind block in your head because your time is worth money because you do this as a job. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to go as a waitress in a restaurant. You're not going to give as much time to the table that's ordering water and the free chips and never getting anything else. You're going to pay more attention to the table that's actually ordering food because they're going to spend money. And that's where you have to set those boundaries. But if people also get upset that you're not responding fast enough, that's not on you. That is their problem. And you can't let people wanting all of your time upset you because there's one of you. And depending on your platform, there's thousands or millions of them.
And I
Yeah.
think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves too to feel like we have to instantaneously, you know, reply, and and that's just it's just not attainable.
I'm gonna add one more thing because I don't want to hold you up any longer. With women especially, and when I wanted to address the public part of it in person. It's really easy to feel like, oh, I'm gonna be considered a B if I say this thing to you. It was not an issue for me to just, I see a message, I'm not responding to that. Like it's really easy. But even in person, I don't owe you kindness. I don't owe you gratitude, grace, any of that. So if you really are just like, hey, sorry, I gotta go, and you shut that off, that's it. Do not feel apologetic, because I really just don't, I don't subscribe to that feeling of, oh yeah, I recognized you owe me your time. So it's going to be a mental thing to wash back. And sure, some people may think of you poorly for that, but when they sit back and think about it, like how a man might brush off some people, and they're like, oh, he has too much, he's too good to give them their time, then they need to recognize the double standard, the literal dichotomy of it all, and you just embrace that. So yeah.
I know a lot of folks who have no DMs in their profile, and it's a really nice, quick, easy way to just feel okay about not answering DMs. And once in a while you can go in and make someone's day and talk to them personally through that area. But I think for the most part, people don't realize how many hats content creators wear. You have to do logistics, you have to do promotions, you have to make the dang stuff.
And you still have a life too.
Yeah, and have a life. So yeah, I know people. I don't think a lot of folks are not aware that it could be so draining. So don't hate on them for it, but take care of yourself.
Hi. Thank you so much for your patience.
I'm an extremely patient person. My question is, I also stream on Twitch, and my question is, since I'm a new streamer, a lot of times I'm I love to look at other people and get advice, but the most advice I get is sexualize yourself a little more. And while I love being sexy, it's not my first thing that I start with. So you're ready. I see you ready. So I guess my question is, how do you decide the left and the right of it all, and not get the advice of okay, well, I want to be great, but
Okay.
I don't really want to show my boobs.
The sex side of
Yeah.
content, it's really, you have to have a clear cut line in your head where you want
Truly.
your content to go. If
No,
you
no, no,
want
no,
it to
no,
go to that side of content creation, then it's not technically bad advice, because you will be making money off of it eventually. But if your boundary is on this side of that line and you don't want to pursue that side of
I don't
content
think that's
creation,
what
then
that
don't.
was.
Do
My-
what you're comfortable with and
Yeah.
what you want
My
to do.
boundary is not far
Yeah.
super sexy, but it's not super conservative either. It's just
It's more of if you ever
it's
want
a
to get
balance.
into the realm of adult content.
Can I
then
get the
it's kind of a-
context? Can I get the context for? Because I understand what you're saying, but I just highly doubt it. So, are you someone that presents yourself that way? Are you?
No.
You
If
don't.
you watched any of my streams, I wear
So this-
t-shirts. I'm super comfortable.
Yeah. So this person came into.
Yeah.
Is
to
this somebody
to get
that
more
you-
followers?
Is this someone? Is this someone that you know? You're comfortable
Well,
with?
it's not just one person. It's an advice that I get often.
I've
It's
heard this
hey,
before.
if you dress a little better, I don't wear makeup on my stream or anything.
See, I don't
It's
on my
not-
Twitch stream. My Twitch stream, I laugh and I look like a gremlin. I don't
It's
put
not
makeup on. I
uncommon.
don't fix my hair.
Yeah.
I literally.
It's
Yeah.
not
Okay.
uncommon. I've heard this before, but I just want you to. I just really. Oh my god.
Yeah. Such feelings.
It's really annoying to me when people will come at. People are very quick when you are starting off to try to claim your stream. It is very common. People will try to act like they've built you up or that they've made you. So really, truly, I need you to. I'm sure you have it, but solidify your support system. There is nothing wrong with being any sort of provocative or showing off yourself. There is nothing wrong with that. My issue is when people tell you you need to do that to succeed.
Yeah, no.
You do whatever you want to do to succeed. I mean, I I just like this every stream. My hair is in a puff. I'm doing the nerdiest things out there, building computers. We might code sometimes. Truly the most boring thing to do, in my opinion. I don't like to teach, but sometimes I really just have to get this alert working. So, yes, please take as much resource and inspiration from people who do this and do it for their program, and just don't let somebody tell you that that's what you need to do, because that's a blatant lie and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't. So I'm so sorry you had to they tried to do that to you. They're wrong. They're just wrong.
Thank you.
That's bad advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. So on the educational side of things, when you're putting out educational content, how much do you engage with, and how do you create that boundary of engaging with while still maintaining that mental health of people commenting and essentially, for lack of a better term, mansplaining, or even putting out conflicting bad educational, they're like completely negate what you're saying and put out like incorrect advice or just really harmful advice or things like that. Where do you draw that line on like engaging and correcting, but then not burning yourself completely out by dealing with all of that negativity? I know you're good on this one.
So, couple of things. One, they don't come into my spaces and do that because I am right. I will not make a video unless I know that I'm right and I know that I'm correct and I have done the right research and I'm like, whatever. So that's first. Like, if you're going to come into my comments and be wrong, then you get deleted. Goodbye forever. But the real truth is, and I learned this doing what I do, is that not everybody knows everything. And there's a lot of people who think that they know a lot more than they actually do, myself included. Like I think being able to acknowledge when you're wrong is really important, but also, how do I say this without swearing? I think it is important to know how to meet people where they're at, because as a kink educator, I see a lot of videos where people are like, oh, do this cool thing. And you're like, no, that's so dangerous. Don't ever do that. But so what you have to do is you have to be able to meet people where they're at. Some people are just entering, the space. Some people have been in the space for a really long time. And so rather than being like, you're wrong, I try and take that and I'll often stitch it and say, hey, love the energy, love the info. Here's why if you do this, you're not going to be able to feel your thumbs for a year, like that kind of thing. And that tends to work because like, you're not saying you're a bad person. You're not saying, like you're awful for like not knowing this thing, but giving people the grace and understanding and the kindness of saying like, I'm not assuming that you're doing this with malice, but there are better ways to talk about this. There are better ways to educate. It's like the difference where like people still call it ADD all the time on the internet. I know that I'm never going to be able to convince everybody that that's not a thing anymore. And so like but educating and frequently making videos and saying, no, actually it's ADHD and it's the thing and the umbrella and the book and the thing, so that's what I do.
Real quick off of that, what if it's like an industry specific and it's other professionals in the industry then coming at you and like, where do you then, I guess that's where.
Are they paying you?
Yeah.
Well, so
no, it's more like I'm a body piercer. So
I mean, I can speak from our Stage 32 community. So we have a very, our lounges are very structured. We have 16 different lounges that range everything from acting to directing to producing, cinematography. And I have a team of lounge moderators, and it's about 16, 17 people that actually go into each lounge and make sure every day that the content is, is there that should be lounge specific. If they do see the mansplaining happen, or that mansplaining happening, or the bad and incorrect information happening. They go in and they, address the person who is the original poster and getting back to the original topic at hand. A lot of times topics will go off base too, and not, stay true to the actual conversation that's happening. So it's having that team of people who really have your back and who are industry professionals that you can count on in those spaces. It's helped greatly to be able to keep everybody engaged and active in a really positive way.
I'll
Some-
also add, don't
yeah.
be afraid to butt heads. Like,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to stand up for your opinion. Or if it's something that's a bit more subjective, just openly say, like, this is my opinion. And, like I teach art sometimes. So a lot of times I'm like, this is not the only way to do it. This is not like, I'm not saying this is the right way. It's just one way.
There's multiple ways.
Exactly.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left, so we're going to try to get through these questions quickly if we can, okay?
No problem.
To add to that last one, as a woman, advocate for other women.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Boom.
So, coming from somebody in a predominantly male field, how do you balance the please view me as like a professional in this industry and not just, oh, I'm here because I'm a woman or I'm here for the diversity, but also balancing that, I just want to be seen and also not losing your femininity and your identity in that.
I mean, what do you just got to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think
Unfortunately, it's like you're there already for a reason. You've qualified, you met everything. What they think, honestly, that's on them. But don't let them bring that into your space either. Address them, correct them. I'm a very confrontational person. It's just who I am. So if you say something really wild, I'm gonna look at you and be like, "Did you hear what you said? Why do you think that?" I don't need you to answer me. I just want you to know. I just want you to think why and go and take that back to the drawing board and just turn that for a bit. Because you're not here to educate people. You're here to do your job. You are here to thrive and be a working professional. So I want you to not take on our society's problems and put it on your shoulders. So really that's the win for me, is when you can try to at least brush some of that off and just keep kicking straight, and you'll be great.
Don't
But-
change the way
Yeah.
you dress or how you act
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
conform to
Yeah.
what they think
Yeah.
is acceptable.
But do y'all have something else to add that might be a little more robust than what I just gave?
Surround yourself with men who want you to be you and don't want to talk over you and constantly be the person who's in front. Collaborate with good dudes.
All right, we do have one digital question, and we're going to ask that one real quick.
Sweet.
It's from Pedalcat, and it says, is it bad advice if you want your Twitch or YouTube to pay you? Should you go after the money? Should you just do what you enjoy? Is what I'm kind of getting from that question.
Sorry, can you read it one more time?
Is it bad advice if you want your Twitch or YouTube to pay you?
Nah.
No.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of what we're all there for. But if you're getting into it just for the money at the beginning, I
mean,
feel like that's
just
kind of
Be prepared that you're not gonna make money right away.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only thing.
that's pretty much. What
But
I was
it's
thinking.
okay to be motivated by money.
Yeah.
It's
It's
okay
also
to
okay to
discourage
just
if you
do it
don't
as a
make it big in the
hobby.
first
Right.
couple months, couple years.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Hobbies
take
are
time.
fine. Money's fine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi.
Hi. For those that, the content that they create is not necessarily their full-time job, how do you find that balance and or having it fit within your 9 to 5 professional field? Like I
wish
work
I had
as
the
a
answer.
digital marketing manager for a company contracted on a state university campus. And I do not hide who I am to my employer. They know. But every once in a while, I'm like, well, there are so many hierarchy above me that might not know and might not get that. And how do you balance that? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the first thing is that you can separate your identities. You don't have to have your professional identity be your creative identity. And it's also, I think, because I've done that, I've had to go through that too. Whereas, I had my full-time job and I had my creative hustles. I would segment my time knowing that during the day, I'm not really going to post about, my other endeavors, but it's the first thing I'll do in the morning and the last thing I'll do in the evening. And also just to, I was very open about what my creative endeavors are. But I also didn't want to have the impression that I was working on them during working hours. So doing that on off time, I think is very helpful. Or you can always set up, there's different software that can help you, schedule and do that kind of stuff as well.
I mean, above and beyond like the time of it, but like the
look of it,
The
how it's going to be
is
perceived.
somebody thinking that maybe somehow it's not appropriate for someone who looks
Right.
It's
like
always
them
appropriate to be who you
work
are.
on a college campus,
Yes.
basically.
I mean, unfortunately, I mean, people have lost their jobs for less.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
Yeah.
So I work. My job is doing business administration and dispatch for an HVAC company, and it's a bunch of good old Southern boys. Woohoo! I will never let them call me ma'am, or they don't get scheduled. Do they
That's it.
want to work? Then be polite, be a human being, and respect me.
With I think, again, scrub everything. Make sure it's not
yes.
connected to anything that may lead back to your work, because hey, I am a number one proponent. Do not mess with the bag. Like, money is money, and
Yeah.
that's how we need to live. But also, because you are in a more precarious situation, because you know your work environment better than any of us do. If you're already nervous that somebody from above might look down and be like, that's not okay, I would have your presentation ready. I'm not saying prepare for failure, but if somebody did come across this, what is your response? How are you preparing? Like, I really think if you review your company's policy, you know the rules, it makes a much better defense for if it ever does happen. And then also, I would just vet the heck out of your posts. Like, if some of your content would make some people uncomfortable, put those safeguards at the beginning and end. Just, hey, this may not be comfortable for many audiences. Just cover all of your bases, because I get you, I understand, and we can't control it, but just do what you can to protect yourself and prepare. Absolutely. I wish the best for you. You got this.
All right, we got 4 minutes left, so just a quick question, and then we gotta wrap it up. Okay.
Okay. It's going to be maybe a slightly different question. I am a graduate student in feminist philosophy, and the project I'm working on right now is trying to figure out what it is about being female presenting and kind of explain this connection between being interpreted as being feminine or femme or female and the kind of harassment you get because of it. And I was wondering, like, what all of your thoughts are, since you're all public facing and interact with this a lot, about just the experiences you've had of, like, what kind of assumptions are it, or like what do people think that they make this connection between being female presenting that makes you like a target for this kind of harassment that's very gendered.
Please start.
That's such a good question.
Great question.
So I'm non-binary. I use she, they pronouns. And one of the most interesting things was when I realized that like womanhood didn't encompass the sort of like full measure of my experience. People were like, "Nuh-uh, look at you. You have long hair and you're pretty. Nuh-uh." And I was like, "What? Come on." But I think, like, for me, like, harassment aside, like, because like obviously like many people in the world are sexualized, many people are sexualized against their consent, but for me especially, it's the assumption that because I look like this, I'm nice, that I try really hard to be nice, but I really did. I built my sort of like platform on this idea of like self-acceptance and kindness and compassion, and I deeply and truly believe that to my very soul, but sometimes I am a grumpy man, and so I think, like, for me, what I realized is so much of the visual expectation that is placed on female presenting people is about the assumptions of the other interactions that you've had with other people, like it's there's no like you meet one person and one person. It's, well, you look like this and that reminds me of this person, so clearly you must be nice, so like those kind of assumptive visual spot judgments and the invalidation of the actual reality.
I want to add the invalidation
Not
is
to
a
cut you
thing.
off, though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
all right, so we are done for our panel.
Sorry.
I know there's so many questions, and it's like I wish we could do them all. We have to do it twice next year so we can get them all in. But so we want to go ahead and thank our sponsor Blueberry for our live stream. We also have our DragonCon's official charity this year, which is Open Hand. So we have our little, jar up here. It's really cool. It's really cool. I like it. And they're going to match up to $100,000 of money raised during the con. So, also, if everybody has enjoyed this panel, please go in the app and open it up and rate it because, we want to bring it back next year because I really feel like this is a really good panel to have, especially that we see there are so many questions and so many different experiences that people want to learn about and hear about. We do want to make sure we bring it back.
Can we make it a 2-hour?
Right? I think if we could, if we have enough requests for it, we might be able to get away with that.
The last thing I
So-
could tack onto that.
Anything's possible.
Right.
Exactly.
With that, I'd add, like, there's so much to dive into. I really like that question. There's so many experiences, like being Black, being any sort of POC. There's so much that you have to learn. So
Either
I'm
do
glad-
a 2-hour or a part A and a part B, like one on
Exactly.
Friday, one on Saturday.
Oh,
So yeah, go in and rate it. If there's a point to do suggestions, put that in that we need it longer. Who knows? But
thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank
much,
you,
everybody.
guys.
Thank y'all.
Thank you everyone for being here too.
Thank you. That was great. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, GPs. It was great.